welcome to Learn to Live Stress-Free. This is Christine Wright with Dr. Robert Wright Jr., your go-to wellness coaches at StressFreeNow.info. Our featured guest today is Sharon Lynn Wyeth, speaking about the limitless scope of a teacher's job. Sharon Lynn Wyeth is recognized internationally as a name expert, as she can determine one's strengths, challenges, and the power of one's life by deciphering a person's name. Sharon created namology science, the study of the placement of letters in a name, after 15 years of research, followed by 3 years of testing her theories in over 70 countries, including Russia, India, and China. She then continued to develop how to interpret names over the next 17 years, which is why namology science is so accurate today. She wanted to see if her methodology held true in different languages, and indeed it does. The greatest gift that came from developing namology science was being able to see all people as one, as our basic desires remain the same regardless of where we live or what culture we're experiencing. Over the years, she has been able to support thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. Today, she assists HR departments of different businesses in narrowing down the candidates to be interviewed, assists lawyers in how to represent cases to judges, and couples and families on how to better communicate with each other. She also creates names for new businesses, new products, and when people wish to change their name. Her best-selling book, Know the Name, Know the Person, has won an award for excellence in writing. Sharon is a frequent guest on both radio and television, and we're pleased to have her back again on our show for her third appearance. Sharon, it's fantastic to have you back. Welcome. Thank you.
Bob and Christine, it's wonderful to be invited back. I understand we're talking about education this time, and so what's not in there is that I have 40 years in education. I have taught everything from third grade through a 4-year university, everything in between. I am a math major, and I have my master's degree, and that I have taught in 8 states, even though I've lived in 10, and I've taught in 4 countries. So that's not in there. So I've had a wide range of experience that deals with education. And I've been an administrator at both the campus level and at the district office level. I've actually
Thank you
been
for
a principal.
including that, Sharon.
Wow, pretty amazing.
Because we knew that about you, or some of that about you, but our audience didn't, and that's why I was so excited to do this podcast with you, because of your breadth of knowledge and experience on this topic.
Yeah, Sharon, we're happy to have you back, and audience, you are in for a significant treat. You know, Sharon is unlike, she's just Sharon. She's unique, and so she is here to share her wisdom and magnificent travel experiences with us. So, Sharon, to start us off, you were drawn to create namology science because of your time in the classroom. How would you say that impacts your approach to teaching?
Well, I grouped the children initially since the 7th year when I started developing namology science. I grouped them according to their names so that they're sitting in a place where they feel safe and they're getting along with the ones that are around them. And then every month we change seats, and every month I'm introducing people that they may be less comfortable with, because part of an education is learning how to get along with all types of people, you know, regardless of what they look like and what their belief systems are and how they talk. And so by the end of the year, they're sitting by the people that at the beginning of the year they would have wanted to have nothing to do with, and because we're learning social skills all the way along. And it's really interesting because after a while the kids get used to once a month at the first day of every month that we're changing seats, and after a while they'll go, okay, I only have to put up with this person for this many more days. But I always tell them, if you're not nice, if you don't figure out how to get along, if you need help, I'm glad, to be of assistance, then I'll just put you guys together again next month. So people work really hard at trying to get along with other people. And by the end of the year, it's really wonderful to see my classes and their cohesiveness.
Fabulous, Sharon. Given what's going on right now in the news with teachers, have been on strike in West Virginia, Kentucky, and Oklahoma. And, Christine and I talk about this from time to time, how we both remember a time when teachers and educators were looked at as professionals and were in this elevated status, and now years later that appears not to be the case, especially when you look at the media, when you see that how low the salaries are in many places, and how hard the life is, for a teacher. And, one of the things that I have said is that it would be great if every person had the experience to teach in a public school just for 2 days, and go into a school and have to figure out how to control a classroom. And I think that would be an eye-opening experience, especially for many top people, because they think that, teaching is not a profession. Well, they'll find out really fast that it's not as easy as it looks. So with that said, tell our audience, Sharon, what for you, based on your experience, what has been the most rewarding and also frustrating aspects of teaching for you, especially within the international context? Can you compare and contrast your teaching experiences outside the United States also with the teaching inside the United States?
Well, when I taught outside of the United States, I was given total freedom in my classroom. They give you, this is the curriculum for this year, this is what the students need to know by the end of the year, and however you want to do it, however you want to accomplish it, go for it. Whatever supplies you need, just let us know. Whatever books you want to use, just let us know. I mean, there's total support, and the responsibility is yours. And when that's the case, the kids get tested at the beginning of the year, and they get tested at the end of the year. And my slowest student will have gained 2.5 years' worth of growth in math when I'm allowed to do what I know how to do with the materials that I know really work well and that teach a logical, sequential approach, and that's reasonable and teaches why everything works. Okay, and every time I've taught overseas, which has been 3 times now, in Germany, in China, and in Japan, I've been allowed to, quote unquote, do my own thing. And as I've said, my kids make these incredible math games because we fill in all their holes and we jump them ahead. And it's easy for them when they understand why the principles work the way they do in math, and then they can keep going on their own. And by the time we get to February or March, I talk only 10 minutes, and the kids are going, okay, we got the new concept, leave us alone. And they're all working with each other, and they get excited about math, and they feel very successful, and they work harder. Now, let's contrast that with what you see in the United States. When I come into a school district in the United States, they tell me what book I have to use, regardless of the quality of the book. So many books, for an example, will put decimals before fractions, but you cannot understand a decimal if you don't have a concept of a fraction yet. So they're teaching how to do something, but not why it works or any concepts behind it. Therefore, it's all memorization, and it makes no sense. Okay, so as a whole, with the exception of some school districts like in Washington and in New Mexico, there's very poor books out there if you ask a teacher. So we're supplementing a lot. Then the majority of books give you a little bit of basic knowledge, and then they assume that those basics can now jump you into the advanced thinking category, and there's not enough practice and there's nothing in the middle. And so teachers have to fill that in. So we're spending a lot of our time at night creating supplemental materials. There are some school districts I have been in where they not only tell you what book to use, they tell you what page you have to be on every single day, or this week you are doing this. And so that if I switch a class, a student switches a class from my class to another teacher, they're not behind, they're not ahead, because we're all doing the exact same thing on the exact same day. Then, once Common Core came in, not only do they tell us what we have to teach, when we have to teach it, but now they're teaching us how we have to teach it. And when I went through training on how to teach the Common Core method, here I have this wonderful results all the way through with all this experience of all these years and sharing with all these different teachers and constantly gaining new insights and new approaches and new tricks and trades and really becoming a master teacher. Now I'm told from Common Core, this is how you have to present the material. And when they were teaching us that way, I looked at that and I said, you know what? Here I am, a math major, and I have my master's degree, and I would not have understood math if I had to teach it that way, because it's the stuff I learned in college in math that allows me to understand those concepts that you're trying to present. And then you only get through one problem during the entire period. You know, so there's no practice, there's no correlation between anything. And I thought, nobody's going to learn this way. And there was one year when I was so against it, after I was taught how to teach Common Core, that the principal had somebody in my classroom, some periods every single day assigned, and walkthroughs all the time. Is she doing it Common Core way? Is she doing it Common Core way? So the year prior, when I was left more on my own, and I was using materials and doing it, you know, like I know how to teach, my lowest kid progressed 2.5 years. And in fact, everybody else said, oh my God, look at how she got these scores out of these kids. And then the year that I had to teach Common Core and they checked on me, none of my kids progressed. None of them even progressed a whole year. And I left that job at the end of that year because I said, I can't authentically and realistically do this to another set of students because I'm responsible for their learning and they won't learn this way, and I'm not allowed to teach the way I know how to teach. And so you will see a lot of teachers where the states have Common Core supplementing like crazy and saying this is the Common Core way and this is another way. So it's creating twice as much work for us than what we had before. Now, there are states that have never gone to Common Core like Texas. There are 5 states that went to Common Core after 3 years, watched how their student scores went straight downhill, ditched Common Core and went back to what they were doing before, Virginia being one of those. But the states that are doing Common Core, I jokingly call it the dumbing down of America, but that's my opinion. A lot of the teachers agree with me. Other teachers think it's the cat's meow. But what's happening is the older teachers, the more experienced teachers are saying, I can't do this, and they're getting out. And the younger teachers that don't know any better are just taking it all in hook, line, and sinker. This is what I'm expected to do. This is what I'm going to do. And then there's this huge frustration, aggravation level because their kids aren't progressing as that teacher thinks they should, and they don't know what the problem is. And the other problem that's occurring is as more of the ancient teachers, okay, are getting out, what happens is we mentor the younger teachers. Like I went through administration. I was in central office. I was a principal of a high school. And then I stopped for a year and I thought, okay, I think my time's up. And after a year, I missed the kids. I went back in as a classroom teacher. Said, I don't want to work summers. I don't want to have that responsibility. I just want to help this set of kids. And yet people like me and other teachers that have stayed in the classroom a lot of years, we help all the other teachers that are younger than us when we have like weekly meetings with them and we're discussing what are we going to do next week, who's going to do what part so we can share the load. And we're still working 11-hour days, sharing the load. And, you know, we're training those younger teachers. We're sharing ideas with them. We're helping them when they come and say, this has happened in the classroom. I don't want to tell an administrator. I don't want to get in trouble. How do I deal with this? And so as the older teachers, or the more experienced, I should say, teachers, help the younger ones, when we get aggravated, when we say, hey, we're not doing Common Core, we can't do this ethically to these students, and we're getting out, then what happens is there's nobody helps those younger students, the younger teachers. It doesn't happen. And then they don't grow as quickly as they would otherwise. So what I see right now is that if we keep going the way we're going, this country is going to have an incredibly huge teacher shortage. And on top of all of that, like I said, the average teacher where I just was teaching this year was working 11-hour days. And we were collaborating. And we were in meetings every single time there was a conference period. We're supposed to have our one period off to do our work. We're scheduled for meetings. I was lucky if I got one period off a week. And then because I had all kids with special needs and 504 plans and those that had a hard time learning math, I was in a meeting every single morning, sometimes 2 or 3 meetings I was supposed to be in simultaneously. So you'd go to one, say your piece, and you'd race to the next one to say your piece. And, of course, the counselors and the head of special ed all understand that you've got these dual meetings, and so they're all cooperative. but it's like you have no time. And so we end up doing everything after school, and people either do it at home. They've got to grade all those papers because you don't trust students to do it honestly for themselves, and you've got to contact parents, and you've got to keep your records up to date, and you've got to document that you're completing anybody's 504 and special ed plan, that you're meeting those requirements. And there's so much paperwork, and then you've got to plan for the week ahead, and you've got to make your materials, and you're working 11-hour days, and that's if you're lucky. It's only 11 hours and not on your weekends. But every teacher almost that I know that's not as experienced is also working weekends.
Sharón, I want to thank you for such an extraordinarily clear and comprehensive answer. This is a topic near and dear to my heart because I also am a teacher. I've taught from pre-K through 12th grade, and I've had the opportunity to create and administer my own after-school program. And this profession, to me, I think teachers, just as I, spoke to Bob and just talking about our website, I think it's one of the most stressful professions. We could have a contest, who hurts more?
But that and traffic controllers.
Certainly, I think many people don't understand. I remember from the time I was a student teacher a year or two ago. Let me watch out for that mic, people. People would say, "Oh, it's banker's hours. They're at 3 o'clock. They're free." A teacher is not free at 3 o'clock. Their day has barely begun at 3 o'clock or whatever time school lets out. Teachers have to do so much training. Beyond their degrees in school, there's so much specialized training. And the reason I, chose this topic, it does seem to be a seemingly limitless job. When you describe everything a teacher has to do, it seems to me that each teacher needs to have their own, at the very least, one executive assistant, but probably 2 or 3. The paperwork involved in just doing things like attendance, keeping up with parents, that to get to the actual act of teaching the child, and as you described, you are so skilled and so expert, but depending on if you're outside of the U.S. or what state you are in the U.S., you're obliged to follow the rules and regulations which may not fit what the student needs, and you as a teacher there with the student, you know their needs, but you're not able to do it. I have a friend who was a AP teacher, and she's long retired now, but what she said to me, she said, each year the curriculum changes, the requirements changes. She would just close her door and do what she needed to do. As I said, I name no names, and she's long since retired. But we don't all have that luxury. And if we look at movies, To Sir with Love, that's an oldie not everybody may be familiar with, but so many movies about teaching. The teacher who's great is a teacher who goes outside the box. Today, a teacher is obliged to check all these boxes or else. And this is, as you said, and as Bob spoke about, this is not the most highly paid profession. It's not the most respected profession. And yet a teacher is taking care of a parent's most precious commodity, their child, who's spending 5 days a week with them, who's, entrusted with educating them, but in many ways, because of circumstances way outside of their control, their hands are tied in what they can do and in what they can bring, that the amount of skill that they have isn't always brought to the table. And you spoke about something very important that I think in the teaching profession or any profession, being able to have a mentor and to respect the people who have been in the profession for a long year, who have the wisdom, who have the skills, who can be a mentor to a younger teacher who may not know the ins and the outs. And we don't allow that. I mean, part of what I enjoy in my work as a coach, and I know I'm sure it's what you enjoy in your consulting work and teaching namology, is to be able to bring your complete knowledge base and to be able to use all the tools that you have freely and as you see needed and where you can see the success. and rather than being limited. And that's part of why I really wanted to discuss this topic with you, because you bring a scope of knowledge that I don't believe many people have the perspective, that we live in a culture that we tend to, in looking for causality, we get too caught up in blame. We get so inflammatory with our language that let's bring a communal spirit. Let's recognize what we share in common and where we can help each other to move forward. Because when you look at who we serve as teachers, when you look at children, they're so primed to learn. They're excited to learn. They're frustrated when they can't get a concept. They were designed to please and to move forward and to grow. And if we provide the right tools in the right way, they flourish. And most teachers are skilled in many, many methods of teaching, and they can adapt it and personalize it to each student. But as you mentioned, they're not always allowed to. They're restricted. Their hands are tied. And many times, and it makes sense, a parent sends a child to a school and they're relying on the professionalism and the expertise. And they're, as you said, some people, we're for this, we're against this. But it's, the student that sort of gets pulled and loses in the battle of who's winning. Are we testing? Are we not testing? Are we Common Core? Are we not Common Core? And they get lost in the shuffle. That what we're looking for is to nurture the student, to educate the student, to help them to think is not always happening, to support the teacher, to allow the teacher to use the skill that they have to help this child flourish, that it is just not always a cooperative atmosphere. And I think, as you can probably speak to also from the administrative side, the administrator has to check off these 5 boxes, the teacher has to check off these 5 boxes, and, in an atmosphere where everyone should be allies, there's an adversarial dynamic going on.
Well, I can tell you why that is. First of all, the administrators are getting it from 3 ends, okay? They're getting it from parents that have complaints because they want some miraculous something to happen with their little darling. And the majority of complaints of parents are when those kids have no discipline at home, and therefore they have no discipline in that classroom, and the teacher disciplines the child, because if you can't get the child's attention, you can't teach them anything. And so then the parent doesn't like the fact that their child's being disciplined because they don't have the courage, the know-how, the whatever it takes to discipline their own child, okay? And so then they go in and complain to the principal. The principal, if he doesn't satisfy that parent, then that parent goes to central office. Then central office comes back down on the principal. So the principal then has to ask the teacher, what can we do to satisfy, this parent so that, that he's not going to get it then from his boss in central office. So the principal often is just a mediator, and a lot of times he'll move a child from one teacher to another teacher, maybe a teacher that's not as demanding. Well, the education may or may not be going down for that child because it's not as demanding, or that child is now going to be allowed to disrupt the classroom because now we've got to keep the peace, and whatever you do, don't disrupt that kid, The number of parents, I always group parents into 3 groups. You've got the helicopter parents that I don't care what you do, they're right there, and they only take their child's version of what happened without asking the teacher first. Or you've got that helicopter parent, or you've got that parent who has no control over their child at home and wants to look at the good guy and wants to be a friend to their child versus a parent to their child. And so they're always up there fighting over every little thing, and their kid does nothing wrong. And we all know, that kids make mistakes, okay? So then you've got that parent that complains about everything and anything. And then you've got the third group of parents that you never hear from, okay, that you absolutely never hear from. Now, I was very fortunate because it didn't take long, and the majority of my parents would say, OMG, we're so grateful. My child's learning math and is happy to be in math, and math actually is one of her favorite subjects or his favorite subjects, which is really unusual. And so that would all work. This year, I had a parent go in within the first 3 weeks of school to the vice principal and complain because I wasn't doing something that they wanted done, whatever it was. And another teacher happened to be listening outside the door when this was going on and heard the vice principal say to this parent, you know, she's a little bit different, but I'm going to tell you that at the end of the year, you're going to be so grateful your child had this teacher. Just back off and watch what happens, because miracles occur in that classroom. And you don't want to bring her in here and start complaining, because then we're going to have to move your child out of that classroom, and you're going to be sorry. And I thought, you know, and another teacher who was listening from outside the door waiting to go in and talk to the vice principal came and told me what happened. I would have never heard that from my vice principal. Our administration has to back our teachers all the time, and we don't hear of it. And yet the most common complaint I heard from other teachers where I was working, and I was in a good school, okay, and the most common complaint I heard was the principal doesn't appreciate me enough. I'm not getting enough kudos from administration. And I would look at them and I'd say, do you realize that they have almost as many teachers, but when you add the custodians and the cafeteria and everybody else, they have more than 150 people that they have to deal with on a daily basis, just like we do in our classrooms. And can you get to every single child all the time and tell them how wonderful they are? No. The ones that need it get it. You're encouraging them as a group. You're doing the best you can to individualize. But that principal has a job that is very demanding and not always easy. They're taking all the stress. They're taking all the hard knocks. How many times they stand up for us behind our back that we never know about. And yet our teachers are saying, I'm not feeling appreciated enough. And what I would ask my teachers are, can you get appreciation from your students? Can you feel appreciated because you yourself know that you're making a difference and doing a good job? Can you get it from your peers? Can you not expect it from administrators who honestly have very little time to tell you?
That's a wonderful solution, and that is why this is really a limitless profession. Well, audience, we will be back in a moment on Learn to Live Stress-Free with more from our guest, Sharon Lynn Wyeth.
Hi, I'm Dr. Robert Wright, Jr., the Stress Relief Doctor, co-host of the Learn to Live Stress-Free podcast series. I'm an author, speaker, and stress management wellness coach. My published study is the first to show the connection between stress reduction, grief recovery, nitric oxide spiking, and the relaxation response. And my practical application of this knowledge helps you relieve the stresses of everyday life. I have the tools to dissolve your pain points quickly and effectively. Email me to find out how you can start to feel better now at stressfreenow.info/contact. That's stressfreenow.info/contact. Have you been procrastinating about completing an important project or pursuing a treasured dream? Christine Wright specializes in helping her coaching clients to lay out clear, elegant strategies. She shows you how to quickly build your confidence to uncover and eliminate your habitual patterns of resistance and self-sabotage. Christine helps you discover those meaningful insights that will get you to do what works so you can celebrate your successes. Go to stressfreenow.info/contact to let Christine know that you're ready to live your ideal life now. Again, that's stressfreenow.info/contact.
Welcome back to Learn to Live Stress-Free. Welcome back to Learn to Live Stress-Free as we continue our conversation with Sharon Lynn Wyeth. Sharon, I just, want to thank you. You've just really, again, said such a mouthful. That one of the things that I just wanted to touch upon that you spoke about is that, maybe you didn't say it exactly this way, children are very bright. And if they don't meet consistency all around the place, they'll find their little holes where they can get their little way in terms of, saying something that is less than accurate or truthful to get what they need or where they need, whether a story they're telling to a teacher, a parent, a classmate. And it's really important for the adults across the board to have consistency. And that's something that, as you said, depending on what type of parent, what type of teacher, what type of administrator, whether that's there or not. I remember just an experience that I had. It was incredible. I was doing per diem work in the school, and I had a class, and whoever their regular teacher was, I met her later. Everybody saw me with this class, and they said, "Is this Mrs. King's class?" And they recognized them because this class was so self-motivated. Whatever secret this teacher had could be bottled, and, well, it actually couldn't be sold because people wouldn't be able to pay for what it was worth. That these children, she had just instilled the intrinsic values in them that they could have even operated without me there. That they seem to have known their lesson plans for the day, and they just completely went through it.
I'll tell you what the tricks are. You never tell a student that they're smart, because in the minute they fail or they struggle, they don't feel like they're smart, they're stupid, and they give up and quit. Instead, you instill in a child, you must have worked really hard to get this, good hard work, or you need to work harder. You know, this is just going to take more effort on your part. It never has anything to do with intelligence, because if they learn that it's effort that gives the reward and not the intelligence, they work harder. And that may sound like such a simple concept, and yet how often do we hear people saying, Johnny's so smart or Susie's so quick with everything. But then the minute they're not, they feel stupid and they want to give up and quit.
Yes, yes.
So you make it all about effort.
Very, very
and
definitely.
Like I redefine everything. For an example, I have signs all around the classroom with redefining, and it's like fail. You have not failed. FAIL stands for first attempt in learning. That's your first attempt. We don't expect success. You know, occasionally you might be successful the first time, but we don't expect it. You know, hello. And so we don't say that you failed. That was just your first attempt. Okay, let's go again. You get do-overs. Do you want to try again? You know, can we fix that? You know, I mean, there's all kinds of ways. I snap my fingers as long as somebody's giving me a right answer. And the minute they go to stray off, my fingers go silent, which causes my students to pause and go, okay, what did I just say? Where am I thinking off? And it doesn't take long. It takes about 2.5 months into the classroom, and you'll see other students all snapping their fingers at somebody, and the minute they hear something that they don't know or they don't think is right, they stop snapping. And so you're being encouraged with the snap. Keep talking, keep going, elaborate. Use your vocabulary, you know, and we're always allowed do-overs and another chance to fix it. You know, and there's no embarrassing.
Yeah, and I think that's a great value to teach.
You know, and when a child asks, like at the first day of this year, we had a child who asked the same question that had already been asked twice and answered twice. And another person in the room looked at that child and said, didn't you just hear what this one said and that one heard? You know, where are you? You know, and wanted to jump on that child. And I looked at everybody and I said, okay, this is how it works in my classroom. I said, I appreciate the fact that you asked again. It means that you're wanting to learn. It means that you have an interest in the subject. It means that you're not afraid to take a risk. I don't care, guys, if you guys ask me the same question 20 times, 100 times. Eventually, I'm going to figure out a way to say it that it makes sense to you. And thank you for giving me another opportunity to answer that question a different way. And so if you need to hear it again, you ask it again. You know, because when the other person jumped on her, you can just see this child shriveling up and wanting to go hide. And so I needed to, you know, show the whole classroom, hey, we don't do that here. If we need to ask it 20 times, we ask it 20 times. You know, it's my job to find a way to explain it to you.
Yes, that, you know, girls especially have more problems with that over time, girls become more intimidated in terms of asking questions than boys do. That initially, you know, girls will be bolder and speak up, and over time that gets dampened. So I think
because they want approval.
Yeah, to allow them to, hey, ask as many times as you need to ask is a great thing. You know, one of the things that's very different in schools today than when I started, or just, well, if you do it by the second, is technology. What role do you find that technology plays in the classroom? I mean, you didn't have to check a student to leave your cell phone at the door, but even beyond that, that the amount of technology that a teacher has to use in the classroom and has to know how to use has been
that's learning with the
game
time.
changer. Yeah.
That's learning with the times. When I went to school, they said, oh, computers are going to be the wave of the future, so you all have to take a computer class. And we had all these punch cards that we were all walking around with. And the computer took the huge classroom, and there was enough room for maybe 3 chairs. So we all had to sign up for our time to go play in the computer with all our punch cards. So, yes, technology has come a long way, and you just got to keep up with the time. And what I have found is that if I struggle with something, I ask a younger teacher because they can always come show me and teach me. Or a lot of times I'll empower the students. Who knows how to do this? And the kids love to show off that they know something. And then I'll go, would you mind showing me and teaching me? And so what I'm really showing to the kids is I'm still willing to learn. And I tell them, a day is wasted if I haven't learned something new today. And you constantly say that to them. Don't waste your days. If you haven't learned something new during the day, that day has been wasted. And so, yes, and the other thing besides learning the technology is you have to put in some type of what I want to call entertainment value or an activity, something on the computer, something somewhere, simply because kids are so used to looking at a screen and being entertained that if they're just going to listen to you talk and interact with you, that's boring. So, there's Khan Academy. There's a lot of videos out that explain different things. I love some of the stuff Walt Disney has put out. Some of it's hard to get these days, but some of us ancient teachers have it, have the materials. You have to address that because you have to keep their attention. And there have been studies that have been done that have shown over the years that the attention span of a student is now, as there've got to be more commercials in television shows, that the attention span kept shrinking according to how much time was on a television set before the next commercial. And therefore, where students used to be able to focus for the entire hour without a break, now you've got to switch activities or switch your approach or switch about every 5 to 7 minutes because that's basically their attention span. And so you're coming up with all these different ways of presenting the same subject. Now, technology in the classroom with their cell phones can be a real challenge. Some teachers have them put it in, like a pouch when they come into the door. I tell them that they all need to put it upside down on their desk and get it ready to use. If they go to use it when it's not on their desk and they go to pull it out later, then they're not allowed to use it. Okay, so everybody comes out, and I give little reward stickers that you get so many stickers, you get a nice reward. And I give little reward stickers when they remember to do what I'm asking them to do. I just walk around and start passing out my little reward stickers. And so and so many reward stickers equal something that they want, and they have to earn them. And so, in other words, it's not how smart you are, but it's whether you're willing to put in the effort and do what you're supposed to be doing. But I leave that cell phone out because I find when students take notes that they're missing some of what I'm saying because their eyes are on the board, their eyes are with me, and then they're writing, and then they stop listening while they're writing. And so instead, they get all their attention with me. And then at the end, before I erase anything, I say, okay, guys, out with the phones, take your pictures. Those are your notes. Print them. I want to see them in your notebook tomorrow.
I love it. That's really using the technology. That's fantastic, Sharon.
Sharon,
or sometimes I'll say, go to Google and find out this definition of this math word. And what does that mean? And how many definitions are there? And how can we say it in your own words? I mean, I'll send them to their phones. And because they know they get to play on their phone sometime during the day, they're all really good about putting it out on their desk.
Sharon, as I was listening to you, one of the most striking things that I see is the gap. When I think of the learning style and approaches that are used, for example, Waldorf schools or Montessori schools or schools that use the Suzuki methodology, it's totally different than what's done in the public schools, and then how many of the rich public school districts have opted out of the testing and returned the No Child Left Behind money, but the poorer school districts, they don't have that choice because they spent the money. So the thing is, my question for you is, in your opinion, what is most lacking, especially in the public school learning environment today? Could you describe to our audience, from your perspective, what an ideal environment would be for learning for children and how it could be sustained? For example, is class size the most important thing? Curriculum, methodology? You know, there seem to be so many moving parts. And then where would testing, if any, fit in? Just before you answer, the reason, I'm looking at it from this perspective, I had a conversation recently with someone that was talking about the colleges in the New England area, and they mentioned Hampshire College. And I said, oh, that's the college, one of the first colleges where there were no grades on the transcript. And I'm not suggesting that should be something that's prevalent, but I just remember the person telling me, how rewarding it was. They had gone to a high school where there were no grades and that everything was a narrative. And I said, oh, that actually is more detailed. The college would actually know more about the person. And she said, yeah, but everybody wants a grade point average, and so then you become this anomaly, and it becomes a problem. So that is what I'd be curious about your perspective, because when I've seen, Waldorf or Suzuki or Montessori, first of all, they have a maximum of 8 children in the classroom, and of course that's probably not possible in the public school context. But I'd like your take on this issue.
I have taught in schools where I had 40 kids assigned to a classroom. I have taught in schools where it's anywhere down to 24 in a classroom. So, and occasionally I get lucky enough to have less than that. All right. So I have found that it doesn't matter the size of the classroom. It matters whether they're, your discipline style. And if you're able to address things the minute they happen and keep everybody focused because you've made it interesting. I have taught in schools that were so poor we had no technology. I've taught in schools where there was so much technology it was almost overwhelming. So I don't think any of that really matters. The thing that I would love to see in a public school is that from day one we are teaching personal and social responsibility. We are teaching how to respond to another person so that we're not being caught up with peer pressure, that we know that we are responsible for ourselves and our own choices, and we are responsible to other people but not for other people. In the school systems, like in Washington State, where everyone takes a personal and social responsibilities class, and they do it in middle school, they do it in elementary, they do it in middle school, and they take it in high school, you don't have the discipline problems. You have higher grades, you have better learning, you have higher scores on tests, and it's all because they're taking ownership and responsibility for their own learning, and they know how to do it. When I was fortunate enough to be chosen to go through a training and able to teach that kind of a class while I lived in New Mexico, and got to teach that type of a class as an experiment during my off period, which wasn't off, I was teaching an extra class. I wanted to do it because I wanted to see if this would work. And so what we did is we took ninth graders that were second-year ninth graders or 10th graders that were second-year 10th graders. We took 9 of each of those, so I had 18 students. They had to have been at least 25 times sent to the principal in one semester. They had to have at least 4 Fs on their current report card. I mean, if you get the idea of who we were going to experiment with. And what we found is as we taught the curriculum that was developed by Connie Dombrowski, it's just a fabulous program. And as we taught that curriculum of personal and social responsibility, kids started shifting and they started changing. And at the end of the second semester, which is the semester that I had them, none of my 18 students had an F on their report card. They were still being sent to the principal the same number of times, but we found that, and I thought, there's something wrong with this. So at the beginning, I looked at all of their referrals, and they were for major incidences, fights, aggravation, all kinds of things. But the second time, the second semester, they were still sent, but it was like they forgot their pencil, or they didn't have enough paper, or, I thought the teachers are just so used to sending this kid out of the classroom that they're not thinking, you don't send a kid out for this. One of my students came to us every day and went back to jail at night. But at the end of the year, the results were so dynamic, and when they followed those kids through, by the time they were the seniors, they were the school leaders, because they knew how to be who they are and how to hold their own, and they knew how to talk. They knew how to encourage a teacher to be a better teacher if they didn't like the way that teacher talked or taught. They had learned the skills. And in Washington State, when that's mandatory, their grades and their scores and everything have just shot up since they've instituted that program years ago now. And so I look at, if we could teach our kids how to be responsible, how to be in charge of their own life, how to get their needs met in an appropriate way, then you wouldn't have the discipline problems, and everybody would want to keep learning. And if they didn't like a teacher, they didn't like how that teacher taught, they'd know what to do about it. One of the parents came in, and I was pulled out of the math class I was teaching, and another VP came in and took over for a while, because I was pulled down to a meeting with the VP and a principal and this parent, and they said, we needed you in here because you're teaching this social responsibility class. And this parent came in and said, what am I supposed to do? I told my child no, she could not go to this concert. And she looked at me and she said, I want to go to this concert badly enough that I am willing to take whatever consequences you need to give me, but I don't want you to worry about me while I'm not here because I'm going to the concert, but I'm willing to take the consequences that you give me that you think are appropriate. And the parent looked at me and said, and how am I supposed to answer that? And I thought, the child's taking responsibility. They're giving you their needs. They're saying what they're going to do. You're fully informed. And they're willing to take the consequences. Isn't that a mature thing to do? Isn't that what we want our children to be able to do? To express themselves so clearly. And so,
how interesting. I want to just ask you just a question, because that's beautiful. This is the first time I'm hearing about the Washington State model. I haven't heard that model, because one of the things that has been done is, with the emphasis on the testing in the math so much, and the testing with the scores, is that the other things like social studies, history, dance, music, art, etc., have been, sidelined in the curriculum. But here's a side question for you, Sharón, in this area. Christine and I are very much into helping people figure out how to reduce their stress, etc. One of the things that I found very troubling, that whenever I had the conversation with someone that's in the education business, and I share with them, hey, are you aware that the research shows conclusively that when you reduce the stress of the students and the teaching staff, that not only do test scores skyrocket, but also the kids are no longer sent to detention, and the satisfaction of the teaching staff improves measurably. So you have three things going on just by reducing stress and test-taking anxiety. And then the response often is, well, yeah, that's a good thing, or yeah, I'm aware of that, or no, I'm not aware of that. But there doesn't seem to be any interest in implementing these systems. There seems to be institutional resistance to putting in place something that you hear. The whole point is, how do we get the test scores up? Well, duh. If you reduce the stress of the staff and the students, the test scores will skyrocket, and they don't go to detention, and the teachers are happy, and their job satisfaction goes up. That seems to be a win-win. What do you think it would take, Sharón, for people to see the light? I'm talking about at the administrative level, where they would buy into the stress reduction.
It has to start at the district level. because at the district level, they keep pushing more and more content into lower and lower grades, okay? So therefore, you have to see, does somebody know it before you can move on? If you look at countries that do exceptionally well and outscore the United States all the time, like Norway and Sweden and Finland, they don't even get algebra till they're a junior or senior in college. I mean, not in college, in high school. And yet, we're asking our 7th graders to be ready for algebra. And all the studies have shown that maturity level, with more maturity, the math makes more sense, and that they shouldn't have those type of skills until they're mature. And we all know that a 7th grader is not mature. And so I have mixed emotions on testing. You have to do some because you have to have some kind of evaluation tool that says, what do we know, what do we not know? I used to joke at the school I was at this year, is that you can come into my classroom and all of my students can do the math that they're supposed to know, but they don't test well. And when the principal said, why aren't your students testing well, I said they can't read, and everything is a word problem. And if they can't read it, they don't know what they're being asked, and then they don't know what to do. And
wow.
And I said, and so they just need to have simple, not these complex tests. They need to have simple, straightforward test questions like what are written on the ACT. It's like, do you know how to do this, and do you know how to do that? Very simple, direct questions. As far as testing goes, I give my kids what I call a brag sheet, and I give it to them almost daily. It's 5 problems. How much can you brag? How much do you know? How many bragging points do you get? And then you can take your highest brag sheet for the week, and if you want to mark it down on a score, we mark it down on the score. But kids, after a while, get really pleased. Hey, I got 4 out of 5, or I got 5 out of 5. And I said, yep, that gives you bragging rights. And so I just renamed them, but I want them to get used to a daily evaluation almost, so that their anxiety goes away after a while. It's like, oh, yeah, another one of these, instead of, oh, my gosh, I haven't had any practice taking tests. In our society, we have tests for everything. If you want to go to law school, you have to take a test. If you want a driver's license, you have to take a test. That is a skill that needs to be taught. And some kids are really good at taking tests, and others just freeze up. So it's how do we do that? The elementary schools many of them, especially where I taught this year, are going to no grades in the elementary school. So then you have to send a portfolio. You have to have some way of saying, where is this child? What does this child know? What does this child not know? So we know where the holes are to start filling them in. So no grades is almost, in my opinion, detrimental, because there's no true evaluation of this is where you rank according to your peers. Now, some people can do incredibly well in some areas and not well in others. I think I would like to see us give the children more of the courses of where they're doing well, because let's say I excel in science and I really love science, but because I'm not good at math, they're now making me take 2 math classes and I don't get to take my elective science that I want to take. Well, right. Then I'm not getting stronger in the field that I'm good at, and I'm learning just to hate math that much more, okay? And I'm going to be a disruption in that classroom. However, if we gave kids classes of where they're really strong, and we said, yeah, you get to take your 2 science classes, but you may need some help in math. Then that child now, when the math comes into the science class, says, I have a reason to learn that math. Now they're motivated because they're going to be applying that skill into something that they love, and their math scores will go up. And that's what they found in different countries overseas, that if you allow a child to really explore and experience the subjects where they're naturally good, instead of making everybody mediocre at everything, their other weaker skills naturally come up and naturally follow.
Yeah, okay, so that's great. I want to thank you for that. That leads us to, for next time, that you open the door to this issue of, what's the purpose of education? Because it seems that so much of education, the students are dissuaded or actually penalized for asking the why question. And so understanding the why, goes to causations instead of dealing with symptoms. So, Sharón, on that note, I want to thank you for being our featured guest today. Could you let our audience know how they can contact you and how they could become more aware of what it is you're doing and buy your books, and also give your contact information should they want to email you to have you as a speaker or to do a workshop for their group?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is to go to the website, knowthename.com. It's K-N-O-W, the name. Because once you know the name, you know all about the person. And what I've done is identify patterns in people's names and the corresponding behaviors to it. And so knowthename.com has a contact page, and if you just press on that, it'll email me directly. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
All right, wonderful, Sharón. Well, we want to thank you so much, and we enjoyed you sharing your obviously extensive expertise on this subject with us. And audience, you can learn more about Sharón or get in touch with her at knowthename.com. That's K-N-O-W, knowthename.com. Thank you, Sharón.
Wonderful.
Always
Sharón,
a pleasure.
Wonderful. So, Sharón, what final thoughts or key idea would you like our audience to take away from today's broadcast?
That teaching is an incredibly difficult, challenging job, and anything you can do to support the teachers of your students, of your children, to go in and when you think there's an issue, to go in and say, how can we work together? This is what I'm seeing at my end. What are you seeing at your end? And if you come to your teachers with a cooperation, it's amazing the amount of time and effort that the teacher will go out of their way to make sure your child's okay. So I would love to see cooperation instead of competition and combatant.
Wonderful, and I think most of our people would agree with that. That's what we want because the kids learning and the teachers being supported. So, Sharón, thank you for being our featured guest today. And audience, I want to thank you for listening no matter what time zone you're in and wherever you are in the world. And I'd like you to know, again, how much we appreciate your presence, and we trust that you'll benefit in some unique way from the information that was delivered today by Sharón. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, as always, we'd love to hear from you. So please contact us through our website and with your feedback and suggestions. Remember, listeners, if you'd like to experience the same benefits our coaching clients get with us, including learning how you can get more results in your day and easy ways to dissolve your chronic pain, stress, and anxiety, then give us a call at 954-900-2179. Mention that you heard our Stress Free Now podcast show, and you will receive a free gift from us. Call today to schedule your free consultation. For Christine Wright, this is Dr. Robert Wright, Jr. of StressFreeNow.info. Until next time, be safe and be well.